Warning. This video is just going to be me talking about the recent Baldur's Gate 3 drama. If you have difficulties watching people talk for 9 minutes uninterrupted, you can just skip this one. Also, come over and hang out over on Twitch, at twitch.tv Mr. Holton. So there's this developer, right? Xavier Nelson Jr., who essentially had a take on Baldur's Gate 3 because they're so, the game is looking to be one of the biggest RPGs in a long time, possibly ever, with the amount of things that they've tried to accomplish. And the thing is, Xavier here has a pretty, at first glance, you would think that he's trying to, it's almost like he's trying to make excuses, but when you really read through all of his tweets, he is making a point that it's not a good idea to sort of, create this expectation that every RPG is going to be like Baldur's Gate 3, because you're just going to be disappointed, because what Larian has done with the game is just on another level, because they've had so many things leading up to Baldur's Gate 3 that's made it, this huge experience that we're about to experience. With his first tweet was, like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited about what the lovely folks at Larian accomplished with Baldur's Gate 3, but I want to gently preemptively push back against players taking the excitement and using it to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. I kind of felt a little bit struck by this, because I mentioned on one of my streams, I think it was last week, or I think I've said it a few times now, that, hey, BioWare, you guys better, look at what they're doing and maybe try to apply that onto your games. The same amount of quality effort, I guess. In any case, I've kind of felt included in this discussion. Not that anybody has named me or something. I just want to talk about it, because this guy has made a deal out of it, and it seems like a lot of people aren't really liking it, because if you look at the 500,000 views but only 3,000 likes, so there's not a lot of people that agree with him. Well, there are, but I think it's kind of taken out of context for a bit here. Essentially what he breaks down, right, is a huge amount of things that's gone behind the scenes for Larian, for making sure that this is going to be one of those games that only happen in a lifetime, sort of. He says here Larian is coming into this game swinging with a gigantic weight of expectation to deal with, but they're also doing it with an immense amount of wind, direct experience, plus resources, especially tooling. The fact that it's early access and people have paid full price for the game, which makes it, one big reason to why a lot of other developers can't really do the same thing. They've had direct feedback, which is, again, they've been very open about the development. So we've seen a lot of things, and whatever we didn't like, we've talked to Larian about, and they've fixed it or made it better. So they've been developing it together, sort of, with the community, which is really cool. I love how the huge studios like Blizzard jumped on the train here. Yeah, it is a little silly. Blizzard doesn't care. Blizzard does other things I can't say. Yeah, I would never hold really, Blizzard as a role model for anything. But they could definitely, do whatever Larian is doing, or even better, with the amount of money and people they have. He even, Xavier even says here, if they go big or as bigger with their next title, Larian themselves could die. That's the risk and reward of the mega game. And the thing is, right, because what he's saying here is that this game, Baldur's Gate 3, is going to create such an amount of anticipation for basically every other RPG to at least live up to what Baldur's Gate 3 was, or, they're going to be at the risk of getting slaughtered by the fan base, getting low ratings, because they just can't reach the level of depth that Baldur's Gate 3 might reach. Now, I say might because we still haven't played the full game yet, and it's definitely possible that I really hope that's not the case, and I really do trust Larian that it's not going to be the case, but we never know if it's going to be one of those Cyberpunk situations. Not really exactly like Cyberpunk, but you get the amount of bugs and stuff like that. That is still a possibility. Hopefully it isn't, because they've really taken their time with it. But we still don't yet know, is this going to be the biggest RPG of all time? And even if it is, it's going to be good. I love the early access, but is the rest of the game as good? It's always important to have a little bit of skepticism in your life, right? We can't really overhype things as much. But so I see what he's saying here, right? That people are going to start comparing it. And I think, well, who was it that talked about this and said that it's essentially none of this matters, you know? His take, as much as it makes sense in a way, it doesn't matter, because the people who decide if it matters or not are the consumers, and most consumers do not care about this tweet thread. They don't care about what I say. They don't care about what we say in the comment section. Most consumers just go about their lives, and if they play Baldur's Gate 3 and they think, man, this is probably the best RPG I've ever played, and then they go play some other game and then they instantly compare it, you know, that's just going to be the case here. You can't really prevent that, because that's just how people work, you know? You don't need to be super interested in all the gaming news and whatever's going on behind the scenes on the internet. You might just be a you know, gamer in general. So for most people, they won't notice, they won't know about all this. But another thing I think is really important here is the fact that this is sort of, as much as I see what he's saying, like, he's not trying to make normal people or consumers seem stupid, but in my opinion, that's kind of what this comes off as, that please don't feel this way or think about this way, because you're going to be disappointed if you expect every other game to be at the same level now as Baldur's Gate 3, which I think, you know, I don't agree with that sentiment. You know, I don't even think he had to really say this, to be honest, because I think most people understand that you can't compare really a small, you know, indie studio with Larian now. Most people generally know that this is a project that has taken a lot of time and effort and, you know, money. So, I mean, consumers aren't idiots, right? That's one thing that I keep seeing, like this idea that that people are idiots, like that they can't compare it realistically in their own heads, like they need things explained, which is something that I've had to learn throughout the years, you know, being like when I started YouTubing just a couple of years ago, where I just assumed that everybody needs hand-holding whenever you're talking about something. And it's still something I have to kind of phase out of my content, because I always assume that there are people that need hand-holding explanations. Like, I need to really dumb it down for people. But generally I don't, because most people understand what I am talking about. And I think it's generally the same for a lot of consumers. As much as that is this discourse or the discussion in the internet, or that's the belief on the internet, is that everybody else is fucking stupid. That's not the case. It's not true. Sorry for a little rant there, but that's kind of how I feel about it. So like this whole argument really, in honesty, does not matter to most people, because they're gonna assume that that's, you know, the case, that yeah, of course we're not gonna compare it. Folks need stuff to talk about in the next 2 weeks, absolutely, which is why I'm making the stream. In any case, so Wolfheart talked about it, right? So we're gonna check out Wolfheart's video on this. I want to see what he has to say. I haven't seen this yet.